Yes, I'm sharing the screen.
We can see it. Go ahead.
Okay. So I'm Łukasz Rozmej from Nethermind Ethereum client. I'm a tech lead there. I'm also Ethereum core developer, and thank you for having me. So I will start with a very brief history. So you might see Nevermind popping out in different places. The company right now is around 200 people strong, but the number of people actually working on the client is smaller. It's just a subset of this team. And we started, Tomasz, our founder, started working on Nevermind Ethereum client in 2017. We had our first release in 2019, and I joined the team then. In between 2020, 2021, we added some our unique features that I will tell a bit later. But as you can see, we only started to grow the team a lot in 2021 and then 22 and now in 23. So we had quite a few things to catch up to, but I think we are catching up, or we caught up on almost everything. And now we have the manpower to create the perfect Ethereum client that we envision. So why I'm actually here? I'm actually here to promote client diversity. And client diversity can be seen in like few axes. So we can have node diversity on the network. We can have actual node diversity in the validators that are actually validating the chain and creating the blocks. And we can actually have node diversity in the builders, but with MEV, it's even more complicated to achieve that. And why do we need this? So probably the most important one is the diversity of validators. So no one cares if we have diversity on the Ethereum nodes if all the validators run Geth, for example, right? They need to run Nevermind, Beth, or Aragon in order to have a proper client diversity. Why this is important, right? It reduces dependency on the Geth code base. So we don't want Geth to be Ethereum. We want Ethereum spec to be Ethereum, and everyone who implementing it doing the right thing there. So we have so if we have a bug in one of the repositories, it won't affect the whole chain, right? That would be bad. Also, when we have a bugs in some of the clients, it is very explicit. So, for example, if we have bugs in more than 1/3 of the clients of the network, then we would lose finality. But this is fine. This is okay. This is not fine. This is bad, but this is not catastrophic, right? If we lose finality, the chain actually is being informed that there is a problem. And for example, we can stop trading only the risk tradings, right? Anyone who is averse to risk can, for example, stop trading during that time until the issues are solved. And there is also one interesting problem on the social layer. So if we have more clients, we also have more protocol client developers. And those protocol client developers are gatekeepers a bit to Ethereum evolution, right? So for example, we are deciding to some extent about which EAPs will be implemented for the next hard fork. And if you have multiple teams working there, you have less bias, right? Because if one team has some bias or prioritizes some things based on their own personal experience or personal beliefs, this now is more democratized process. So there are multiple things that we benefit from client diversity. The problem, like I said, is measuring client diversity. So in terms of node diversity, we have a decent measurement in ethernodes.org. And while this is a bit outdated image, Geth is around 50%, Nethermind is around 20-25%, and we have Aragon 10-15 and Bezu around 10% of the nodes. So the node diversity is looking decent. It's not great, but it's not bad right now. But like I said, node diversity isn't the thing that we are most interested about. Is about validator diversity. And validator diversity isn't as great because, and it's really hard to track because we cannot really measure easily which validator runs which kind of node. It would be a privacy breach. We don't want even this data to gather this data. So the only way this is actually currently being done is by social channels, like running surveys and just talking to people. And I think there is not enough diversity in the validator space right now, and we need to improve it. And improving it is not only in, like, for example, Nethermind, Aragon, or Besu interests, but it's in the interest of the whole ecosystem of whole Ethereum. And now going to plug in Nethermind, what are our unique features? Why you should be potentially interested in going Nethermind? So firstly, we have super fast sync. Our sync is the fastest on the market. It scales really well. So on super fast machine, it's super fast. On fast machine, it's only fast. But it's on the best case scenarios, we can have a machine validating the chain in 30 to 40 minutes. And in some cloud scenarios, this is the time to copy Geth database. So we can sync to the head of the chain in the similar time that people copy the Geth database from disk to disk. So it's something we boast about. Just to be aware, this is for the headers and state sync, which allows you to both create blocks and attest head of the chain. We still do sync bodies and receipts in the background. And it takes a few more hours, let's say 2 or 3 hours on a good machine. So just be aware that we have a different sync than probably any other node, and be aware of that. Full pruning. So we still use fairly straightforward yellow paper implementation of Ethereum state, and this causes that some garbage gets into the database from time to time. We cannot prune everything in memory. We have to save trees from time to time to the disk just to support restarts correctly, for example, or because our cache in memory is full and we need to dump it. So there is garbage aggregating in the database. It's similar in Geth, but we can clean it up thanks to our unique design without stopping the node. So you can configure your node, for example, that if your database is over, let's say, 500 gigabytes, right? Well, it's state database, well, it should be around 150. Then you will actually run the full pruning in the background without stopping the node, without missing attestations, without missing block production. And this will clean. It will take, again, dependent on the hardware, probably a few hours, but then you will have your database reduced. Another thing is our node is optimized for staking and for being a validator. So we are targeting stability, so the stability of running the node especially. So that's our top priority. So if we get any stability issues, that's top priority for the team. And the second top priority is attestation performance, right? We do not allow to degrade attestations. And on a fast NVMe drive, I've seen like getting 100% attestations. There is some problems on slower drives, and this is because our current state layout but this will change. I will plug in that in one of the next slides. And one last thing that is fairly unique to Nethermind, and also quite completely unique feature, is plugins. So a lot of our own features are implemented as plugins, and plugins work in this way that they are loaded by the node into the same process and can have any functionality. So this is not maybe needed really for node operators unless they are doing something quite custom, but I can imagine that you want to have a unique alerts, for example, for your node. And while you might be able to achieve them through JSON RPC and things like that, it might be easier just to directly integrate them to your node and get them from there. So for example, if you wanted to do something like that in Geth, you have to fork the Geth code, you have to maintain it, you have to build yours yourself. But for Nethermind, you can only build a simple plugin. You just drop it into the plugins folder, it loads, and you have additional functionality. And in the recent releases, and by recent I mean, let's say last half a year, we were focusing more on stability, but we also have a lot of performance improvements. So we were decreasing how much memory we use. We were decreasing how much SSD writes and reads we do. We were decreasing CPU usage where we can, or like optimizing it. And all of that was done to improve attestations again. So like I said, attestations are most important. And from an EL standpoint, attestations are connected to how long it would take for the node when it gets the new payload, new block, and when it says to the CL if it's valid or invalid. So this time is crucial. It's like the most important thing for attestation performance. And we also have this heavy processes that we can run in the background, right? Our old blocks and receipt syncs, as well as pruning, are quite heavy. And in the first or old implementations of that, they had big impact on attestations because they were using a lot of CPU, they were using a lot of SSD input output. So they had a big impact on attestations, but we minimize this impact in recent releases. So you can have a more reliable attestation performance even if when they are running. Another thing is to decrease sync time and improve scalability. So sync time is directly scalable with your resources, right? So again, best case scenario 30 minutes, but even if you have a slower disk and slower CPUs and for sync time, it's also your internet connection is important, it's still really good. Increased stability, like I said, stability is the king. And in the last release, we improved the UX, and by UX, I mean our logs. So for a long time, we had quite dull, non-colored logs. Now we have colored logs. We removed a lot of non-important logs or collapsed them to some to only like a header instead of having a big statistic. And I think this will make logs more readable for new users, especially. Another important thing, what is the future of Nethermind? So a part of course, following all the hard forks, one of the biggest change that we are working all over a year now on is to changing our storage model. So like I said, we have a very straightforward storage model for now, but we are moving to a path-based storage. And it allows us to achieve few interesting things. So when Nethermind 2 will be released, with this new storage model, we will have no pruning. So no garbage will end up in database. It will be deleted, pruned on the fly when the block is being processed. Thanks to better reading patterns from the storage, we will have faster block processing, And this will enable us to get better attestation even on this slower hardware part, right? Especially, I'm meaning the slower disk, because that's the most important. So just to give you an example from our profiling, when the block is being processed, currently 20% of the time is actually EVM execution and 80% of the time is state access. And after this change, our first benchmarks are that now the state execution is 80% and the state access 20%. So the whole thing is a few times faster already. And we haven't really properly optimized the state execution yet because it wasn't worth it right now before we deliver that. We want to have less corruptions on state. So sometimes we have corruptions, but we want to fix them. And actually, we are also adding state recovery. So when we have corruptions, we want to have a more mechanism to recover from these corruptions. Changing storage model won't directly do, but will allow us to do better archive node. So currently, we are not really competing in this regard. Aragon, for example, has a lot better archive node than us. But soon, I think we will be competitive. Serving SnapSync. So SnapSync is how we sync our state, and right now only Geth serves SnapSync. Maybe Bezu does, but I'm not sure. And after we change this state, because we need to be more performant there, we will start serving SnapSync, which will increase client diversity on this level. And you will have also faster JSON RPC. So anything from ETH call to anything that touches the state will be a few times faster. More optimizations. We are always looking for optimizations. And something plugin not for Nethermind 2.0, but for the future that is being worked on in Ethereum community and I think might be interesting for validators are Verkle trees. Verkle trees will come in one of the future hard forks. Not sure if directly after Cancun or maybe one more. But what they bring is something very interesting because they bring light clients. And light clients will be able to validate the block without having any state. So imagine that you run a node and even without it syncing, it can validate the blocks. You can have a validator with almost no storage. And even if you want to download the state, because for example, you want to use JSON RPC, you can download in the background while attesting all the time during the sync. So you will have attestations from when you start the application, when you start the node. And Nevermind actually prototyped this, and it's live on, I think the devnet is called Clostin or something, the Verkle tree devnet. And yeah, we are the first there to do that. I want to also plug in a tool from our DevOps called Sedge. It's a one-click way of setting up your CL-EL pair, and it supports multiple ELs and multiple CLs, not only Nevermind, and multiple networks. So all the testnets too, and Gnosis chain. And we are really eager to hear your feedback. So tell us what you need, tell us what's good, tell us what's bad, what's not working. And I want to emphasize one thing, that in our Discord server, we have a client support channel. And every week there's a different Nevermind developer there working on the client that can help you with your problems, that will diagnose your problems, help you with your setup. So we try to leave no one behind, right? Every node counts. So if you would want to change, don't be afraid. We will try and help you however we can. And that's pretty much it. Maybe there will be some questions.
Thank you, Lucas, for that overview. I'm looking in the YouTube chat right now. There's a question around when we might have gRPC support for Nethermind.
So gRPC support is currently not prioritized, but we might start working on it in the next month. So it will probably take a few months to get there, but this is something we want to deliver, but it's less priority, for example, than the state redesign.
Okay, understood. That's fair.
One thing, if a few people ask, it will get bumped. So please, tell us what you need. If more people needs gRPC, we will probably shift it in priorities.
So spam the client support channel on Discord is what you're saying.
Yeah, for multiple accounts.
The more people there, the better in a certain way. So I guess that's how you get them in, right? Bait and switch.
Yes.
No, that's really cool, really cool. Yeah, and vertical tree support is something really, really cool to look forward to. And then potentially, being able to validate with much less state stored. In terms of the syncing model, I just had a really quick question. So like obviously you use a really different syncing paradigm. How soon can that EL client be used to actually produce blocks? Do you still need to sync the full state first?
You need to sync full state, right?
Okay.
Because blocks are to produce blocks, you need to actually access the state, right? And to get the actual state root. But like I said, it's 30 minutes on a very fast machine, 1 hour on a decently fast machine, 2 hours on a mediocre machine, right? So and you can get there very quickly.
Okay, and one last question before we jump into the world of MEV burn. What is the testnet where vertical trees are being implemented and tried out? Somebody asked.
I would have to look it up.
Okay, no worries. If we can
I
find it and we can send it in the chat.
I will plug into a chat in a second.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, thanks a lot, Lucas.